This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. One of the things I wanted to talk about was Nick Chubb. What are some fair expectations for Nick Chubb? And to do that, I'm bringing on G Bush. G, they ain't gonna be able to see you yet because I think the Patreon thing gonna be scrolling over your face. But just describe this outfit to them before they see it. I need you to explain this.
Well, this right here, this is more like this is your local bookie meets your uncle at the family reunion, meets a little bit of 1996 rap. This is more my like Camp Low fit. Like if I was like the third member of Camp Low, this is what I would be. This is DJ Rufus such and such.
Is E40?
Hey, E-Fizzle, man. Shout out to E-Fizzle, man. You know what I'm saying? A little E40. I like to think that no disrespect to E40, you know what I'm saying? I'm a little sleeker than E40.
Oh.
E40 would be inside at the D tackle position. I would be outside. I like to stand. I'm a stand-up three technique at this point. I'm working my way out to the edge.
I was about to say, you jumped on this thing. I'm like, he about to give me them crack commandments. That's what he about to give.
1-900-HUSTLER. Let me help you out.
A step-by-step booklet for you to get.
Right. Listen, it's tough. It's tough. Not everybody in the media can pull this off. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm starting to become one of those guys, that is going to try some new things. One of those guys.
I'm just happy that you were in the space to experiment because, between the sharp hats, the Kangos, I feel like one day I'm going to log into this Zoom call with you. You're going to be dressed like Steve Harvey in the 90s and shit. Like, when the zoot suit coming? Like, I need to know. Like, you going to bring out a zoot suit?
I'm more into I like. Now you might see me with like I don't know, I might come with a karate fit on or something, bro. I might be dressed as Peter Pan or like
Peter Pan,
but the ghetto Peter Pan, like what I'm saying?
No, don't try to thug it up. No. Hey, you said Peter Pan.
Peter Pan had knives and stuff, and Peter Pan had knives. Like he was kind of gangster if you think about it.
You remember when people used to wear the gangster SpongeBob shirts? That's what it feels like right there. That's what gangster Peter Pan sounds like to me.
Plus, I don't know if they're like today with today's climate, you can be running around. Peter Pan was kind of creepy. I am going to strike that from the record. We're going to strike that from the record. Let's go. I should at least said Captain Hook.
That stays. Everybody asked G Bush about them Peter Pan fits.
Now think about it. That was very pause-worthy, man. Peter Pan had like stockings on too.
You got to live with it now, dog. You gonna be out here dressed like Link, okay? I need to see that. But outfits aside, let's talk about the Browns' pride. Nick Chubb. They just restructured him to a contract, basically just saying, hey, we're gonna give you incentives if you play up to where you do. You get that money. You don't, then we kind of protect ourselves there. Kind of a standard thing. It's funny, G, how all of these contract things, we've basically been saying that they're going to happen since January. But everybody was like, oh, no, it can't happen. This ain't going to happen. You need to do this and that. And then nobody's going to do that. And it's like, it all just happened. Like, it all breaks down like that. But with Nick Chubb coming back, I had this question on my mind. What are the real expectations of Nick Chubb? Like, at what point, if we see this, do we get concerned about Nick Chubb's ability to play at the same level or at a relative level to where he was before the injury?
Well, look, first thing that I will say is, if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, um, your mindset should be you don't need Nick Chubb to be what Nick Chubb was, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we're thinking about 2 to 3 years ago where the Browns running game, pretty much carried us. We were running bootlegs with Baker and we had the run game with him and Kareem Hunt. And I think a lot of times people have that stuck in their mind. The offensive line isn't the same. What they want to run won't be the same. And that's fine. That's okay. And Nick Chubb, may not be able to play the first 6 weeks. I wouldn't even press him to play the first 6 weeks. To me, you got Deontay Foreman, you got Jerome Ford, you got some guys that you believe in. And for me, what I'm expecting to see from Nick Chubb is give me those carries where you need a 3-yard gain. Give me those carries where you need somebody to make somebody miss in the open field. Give me somebody that's on the goal line that has a nose for the end zone that can get those extra yards and make people miss and those things like that. I'm not looking at a number, so to speak, wise. I'm looking for situational football plays that extend drives. I'm looking for situational football plays that put points on the board 7 instead of 3s. And given the fact that he does have a knee injury and so and a lot of those skill set that he has is up in the air a little bit, right? I look at it like this, is he going to be the same player? Most times people say, and I've had 2 ACL injuries on my left knee and my right knee. One was a contact injury, one was a cutting injury, and I just blew my knee out. And one thing that I always say is I'm nowhere near the athlete that Nick Chubb is, but you got to take in consideration this is his second knee injury, big time. So for me, I think you're going to see Nick Chubb be able to give you the regular plays, and I think he'll be able to do that in spurts. But where you may see him take a little, little bit of a regression is the fact that he may not be able to give you those plays 6 times a game, right? He can give it to you 3 or 4 times a game, and he won't be himself until he gets to next season, where he has an off season to run and condition and to do the workload and to work on some of those things, explosiveness and all those different things. But I think Nick Chubb is going to be, I think he'll be 85% what he is. He won't get that other 15 till next year when he rehabs.
I mean, we'll see what he is. Like, I don't know how to judge these ACL injuries anymore because we kind of lump them all in as like one injury, right? Like, oh, it's an ACL injury. But there's a very big difference between like a partial ACL tear, an ACL tear, a complete tear of all 3 ligaments, right? And it seems like this was a tear of 2. Correct me if I'm wrong. This was a 2-tear ACL tear, which is like not the same as like when you have a normal ACL tear. They're just talking about one ligament. I think this was an ACL and PCL injury. And I think those things, like the thing I do worry about is that Nick Chubb, one of his best abilities is his ability to move laterally, right? Like his ability to put all of that weight, cut, plant, and then get downfield in a lateral motion, and you worry about his ability to do that. I think the straight line speed stuff's going to be the same with him. He'll work out, get to that level. He'll be fine there. The conditioning stuff, I think, will be fine there. It's like, how many cutbacks? Can he do those cutbacks anymore, right? Remember, he would just run right and then cut right back. I think that's one of those things where it's like he might not have that move anymore. Like, it just might be over with for that. And the tough thing about the Nick Chubb conversation is when you look at the paradigm of what running backs are and when they start to age, even the great ones, 29 is usually that age, right? And he not only is coming back from an ACL injury, he's coming back from an ACL injury at 29, and it's not just an ACL injury, it's a double ACL injury. Now, there is one sign of hope, right? 2015, Adrian Peterson came off of a similar, I think that was his second ACL tear in 2014. Not the one that he had the Russian title after, but this is 2014 when he was 29. Came back at age 30, 1,485 yards. And what was the yards per carry? The yards per carry, 4.5. So about what he's averaged his whole career. So there is hope that he can be that same guy. And for me, it's like, you have to weigh what the numbers say about most running backs and the fact that Nick Chubb has been an outlier his whole career, where that puts you in that conversation, because I don't want to just say he's going to be like every other running back that would deal with this situation. He's been an outlier his whole life. So it would be ridiculous to assume that he's just going to fall into that. But I do worry about that. Let's move on to another player's expectations. I feel like Jerry Jeudy is going to have a rough time with people, because I think people are going to move the goalposts like hell on Jerry Jeudy, right? I think if Jerry Jeudy comes out here and gets 900 yards, people are going to complain about it, even though that's a significant jump from what you got from your number 2 receiver last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think if Jerry Jeudy comes out here and gets 1,000 yards, people are going to complain about it, because it's only 1,000 yards, right? That's only this many yards. Like, all of a sudden, you know how people was holding it against him. He hasn't gotten 1,000 yards. He get 1,000 yards, and then all of a sudden, it's not going to be, hey, man, he finally did the thing that I've been holding against him. It's going to be, well, that they're paying him, so they're going to go to that card. And by the way, when they go to that card, when somebody plays well, but somebody then brings up their contract, that's always hate. That's always
that's strictly hate.
Yeah,
like
but
listen, like and get ready for this one. Well, if you look at it, I mean, are you going to pay that money to DPJ? Because, you know, Donovan Peoples-Jones, when he was here, he had 800 and almost 900 yards, and I mean, basically, you're paying three.
Yeah, like it's just a hate move. And look, I'm not saying you can't be concerned about the contracts. Obviously, there's some reason to be concerned about how it affects the salary cap and all of that. But what I will say is, like, we judge players off of what they do and what they have produced in the context of what they've done on the field, right?
Yes.
Brock Purdy's expectations aren't of his pay grade. It's of the conversation he's in, right? If Brock Purdy has a bad game, we're critical of it, just like we're critical of it Jalen Hurts has a bad game. There are guys, a lot of guys who are paid more. Gardner Minshew is paid more money than Brock Purdy. It doesn't matter, because if Gardner Minshew has a bad game, nobody cares. If Brock Purdy has a bad game, people care, because we put Brock Purdy in a higher class than Gardner Minshew. But Quincy, my question is with Jerry Jeudy. Oh, go ahead.
I blame this on you, Quincy. I put it on me. I blame it. You know why? Because when you do your blogs, right? You got all your facts laid out, and you do such a good job of putting together your arguments, right? And you put together the arguments where you be like, man, I never thought of it like that. And then by the end of the episode, you come in thinking a certain way, and then you change your mind at the end, because you're like, dang, bro, he really just gave me that work right now. I'm like, dang, like, I never thought of it that way. And so what happens is, to battle people like you, to actually go head to head and actually try to win an argument or a conversation, they have to go to the lowest common denominator. It's the only thing left. Like, if you say, like, you present your arguments, they got to go like, well, listen, let's go to the value. Whatever they're paying him, isn't it worth it? Like, and it's just like, that's the last ditch effort to kind of compare, instead of try to figure out whether a guy is good or not. They can't articulate it, so it's just like, all right, well, let me just throw the money out there. Right?
It's always a point of like, hey, you got to set the terms of the conversation, because what I'm not going to do is compare Jerry Jeudy and his numbers to Jamar Chase, right? But because he's not in that class of wide receiver.
No.
Right? He's not paid like that class of wide receiver. He's not that class of wide receiver. So what I would be interested in, and what I have not seen anybody do with Jerry Jeudy in regards of where he was drafted, in regards of the position he is. Like, nobody compares him to other receivers that are taken in the late to first round. They only compare him to the outliers that were in his draft class, because he's not those guys. He's not that class of wide receiver.
Let's do this exercise. Okay. Would you compare them to T. Higgins?
I think T. Higgins is a true one. I don't think that's what Jerry.
So you think he's a number one and a number two. His number two position is due to circumstance.
Jamar Chase is there.
Yes.
Right. But But if he had his own team, he would definitely be a number one receiver. And he'd be somebody I would think would get like 1,300 yards, 7 touchdowns.
What about Jalen Waddle?
Jalen Waddle, they play different roles, right? So Jalen Waddle is a deep threat. He's somebody who's going to stretch the field, which means he's not going to be relied on for as many targets or receptions, but he's going to get a lot of big plays. So it's kind of hard to compare those two numbers. Like, if I'm being honest with you, because Jerry Jeudy could get way more receptions and that can result in more yards than Jalen Waddle, but it's not the same type of production, right?
So you would say Hollywood Brown is kind of in that Waddle category as well.
Hollywood Brown is where I would like, you would funnel these deep threat guys where it's like, hey, you want your yards per target, you want your average depth of target for that guy to be plus 10, right? Where Jerry Jeudy's average depth of target is going to be within 10.
So you got him roughly like a Calvin Ridley, right?
Yeah, I would say roughly Calvin Ridley is like within his grasp. Yeah,
right within that comp, or Gabriel, Gabe Davis, right?
Mm-hmm. I think he's better than Gabe Davis.
Okay. See, like if you clump those guys together a little bit. What's the other kid in Jacksonville that got that money a couple years ago? People didn't want him to get it.
I know who you're talking about though.
He's in it. If y'all know, put it in the comment section. He's one of those guys. So I feel what you're saying. Like, for me, if he's gonna be around that 800 to 1,000 range, and it depends on what type of routes he's gonna run and what type of team he has. But I think he should be compared to those guys.
The efficiency matters too. And that's the thing that I don't love about these conversations when we just make it about yardage, right? Because the whole thing that bugs me about the Jerry Jeudy conversation is his efficiency has been of a 1,000-yard receiver, right? 14 yards per reception is what he's averaged his entire career. That's a 1,000-yard wide receiver average if he's getting the number 1 or 2 receiver equivalent of targets, which is around 110 to 120. He also has like a 68% catch percentage. So like if you put all those numbers together, most cases he's a 1,000-yard receiver in terms of efficiency. But because he hasn't gotten the opportunity, people deem him as a not 1,000-yard wide. You see what I mean, G? So, like, if he gets 1,000 yards, but his efficiency is terrible, I'm not going to be moved by that. But if he gets 800 yards on excellent efficiency, then that's going to move me. Or you talk about it, situational production. This is one thing that gets lost in the sauce in the offseason. Is like when I saw Shady McCoy do this on TV, right? He's talking about Deshaun Watson. He's like, well, it's only 185 yards and his touchdown's only this, and that's where it ranks. Okay, that's all true. He has not had the big numbers that we were expecting when we traded for him from Houston yet. There are reasons why that's not happened, but bottom line, true, it's not happened. But those moments, like when you needed a touchdown against Cincinnati to close that game out, Deshaun Watson got you that touchdown. That's only going to read on the stat sheet as one touchdown, but that's the most important score in the game. Or we could fast forward all the way to the Baltimore game, right? He had one touchdown to Elijah Moore, which I think people underrate. Like, that was an excellent play that he made to break out of a sack and then spin free and find Elijah on that post. So he does that. That's a huge play. I mean, that drive, remember, the Browns were down by like 13 at that point with 6 minutes left on the road, needed a quick score. They hadn't got one all day. He gets it in that moment, comes back, and then gets the scramble that puts you in plus territory with a high ankle sprain to get you in the field goal range. Yeah, the numbers aren't going to be great on that game. He threw a pick six. He didn't have the greatest completion percentage in that game. But the context in which that production has moves me more, because at the end of the day, when I look at this Browns team, I see a team last year that proved they don't need to be carried by quarterback play. This is not a situation like well, even Pat's not in this spot anymore, but like Cincinnati asks Joe Burrow to carry them offensively with quarterback play. Lamar Jackson carries Baltimore offensively with quarterback play. The Browns are not one of those teams that are going to ask Deshaun Watson to carry them offensively. Hell, the Chiefs don't even do this with Pat Mahomes, and what they do it with Pat Mahomes, but they do it with the defense more than they do it with the offense. And my whole point is the Browns proved last year that they can win games without having knockout, drag out quarterback play. I don't care what you say about any of the quarterbacks that started. None of them gave you that, right? Every single one of those quarterbacks that played last year and won games with a asterisk on that body of work. We can point it all out, right? Deshaun Watson injured a lot, didn't have the overall yardage production that you would want from a quarterback, but did take care of the ball relatively well for the most part. Then you have DTR, who could not throw downfield, but threw ball well accurately in short areas, was able to get a game-winning drive. Okay, PJ Walker, who YOLO'd a lot, and sometimes it did well for you, sometimes it didn't. And then Joe Flacco, who YOLO'd even more, right? And sometimes it worked out, sometimes it did not work out, but he had a ton of interceptions. He also had a ton of yards and a ton of touchdowns. He had a ton of everything, right? Good and bad in there. But either way, none of those quarterbacks were perfect or even in the realm where you would say they were Pro Bowl caliber, right? They weren't
just killing it.
Yeah.
Every game they had something in it that could have went wrong. Tip passes, interceptions, things of that sort. So right.
My point is with this is we are talking about quarterbacks so much with this team, and Deshaun Watson's job is not going to be to carry the offense. I think honestly, G, this offense is going to be good, but there's going to be no superstar out of it. I don't think Nick Chubb's going to have a crazy year out of it, or David Njoku. Like, it's going to be a pretty spread out unit. And Deshaun Watson's job is the defense going to get him wobbly. Hit the haymaker when time comes, right? We're going to give you opportunity at the opportunity and hit the haymaker. What did the Chiefs do in the playoffs, right? They just stop the ball. Turnover. Pat, hit the haymaker, bam.
We kind of get lulled to sleep into doing it, right? Like, you talk about it so much. We just kind of did it right there. We started off the conversation and we talked about Nick Chubb. We talked about that. We got to Jeudy. And then when we start talking about the receivers, it's this natural progression where we kind of always have to slip into, okay, well, Deshaun Watson is going to do X, Y, or Z, right? And it's like we've almost been conditioned to think of the offense as everything is predicated on whether Deshaun Watson is going to do what we're going to do, right? And because you haven't, and this is, I always want to go back to this. He's played 11 games. Like, we are trying to build a whole world off of the expectations of what he's going to play in 11 games. And to be truthful, half the time he was injured last year, and the time before that, he hadn't played in God knows when. So I think it's a fool's errand to go around and try to figure out what Deshaun Watson is going to do. And it's difficult to talk about the rest of the roster because of, guess what? We always circle back to Deshaun Watson. I think what was interesting in what you're saying with Jerry Jeudy was, yes, it does have to do with situational football. If Jerry Jeudy gives me 850 yards, but he gives me 13 touchdowns, I'm cool because he putting the ball in the end zone. I'll take that. If Jerry Jeudy doesn't have the catches, but he's averaging 18 yards per catch, I'm going to take that.
Or if Jerry Jeudy gets 800 yards, the efficiency is great, and a lot of that production is on 3rd and +7, right? So if he's able to be somebody who can bail you out of long drives and keep the offense on the field, that is so much more valuable. Like, these are the things that when people just look at the raw numbers or they look at the tape and they don't have a cut up that shows them the down and distance situation, that people really miss. Like, I say that football is a game of variables and context. And when you try to take one thing out or the other thing out, you end up with a very flawed approach to the game. And that's why I mean, like, if he has 800 yards, if he has 1,000 yards, we can feel very differently about, like, there's a world, G, where he gets 700 yards and we love him. There's a world where he gets 1,000 yards and we can't stand him, right? Like there, that it's not all about the yardage, and I think people are going to make it about it.
Let me ask you about this world. Is there a world where, and give me the context around it, right? So, say for instance, we look at the sheet at the end of the season, and you have Jeudy with 1,300 yards. He's your leading receiver. What happened?
If Jeudy has 1,300 yards, he's your leading receiver. Is there a world where you could be upset about that?
No. What? How did that go down? Like, is that a thing where? Because for me,
I would imagine, knock on wood, that would mean that something happened to Amari Cooper, right? Where he couldn't play that much for him to get that many yards. Because I don't think that he's going to get more targets than Amari Cooper. Go ahead.
Because the reason I asked that question is because Joe Flacco came in and was like, yo, I'm pretty much going to throw the ball to David Njoku. Like, if he's double covered, he's going to get the rock. Deshaun Watson hasn't played enough in which you can kind of see a pattern where he has a go-to guy, right? And is there a world where, for some reason, Jeudy, Amari Cooper, he puts up 1,000 yards or something, and Jeudy has 1,300. Is there a world where that isn't a problem, right? Because some people will see that as either Amari Cooper's are hurt or the Browns are not doing what they need to for him to have that many yards as a number 2 receiver.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that 1,300 yards, that's so much above expectation for him. Like, again, if he's just cooking, then like he's just cooking, right? I don't know if that's something he's going to be ready to do right now. Like, the tape does not show me somebody that's like bursting out the scenes waiting for a 1,300 yard. It shows me somebody who's going to be a solid 1,000 to 1,100 yard receiver in most typical contexts. A pretty efficient wide receiver and somebody who can help you move the chains. It doesn't show me 1,300 yards. Like, I mean, to be fair, Amari Cooper's never gotten 1,300 yards in his whole career.
12 something last year?
1,260. Yeah, so
he had some monster games. Yeah. I mean, Flacco.
I will say this to your point, though. There is one go-to guy Watson has. It's Amari Cooper. Because you look at some of the games that they've had together. I mean, he threw 2 of those touchdowns in Washington to him. And then almost every big play that he had this year was thrown to Coop, including the one in Arizona. So I would say that those two have pretty good chemistry already. We got to see what's up with him and Elijah Moore. They felt pretty strongly about that chemistry coming out of camp. And I think they were just in a weird place with how they were using him too. But I think also Jeudy is going to be a pretty easy fit for Deshaun, because what Jerry does is run really crisp, clean routes in the middle of the field. And what Deshaun Watson did at his best in Houston is throw really clean balls in the middle of the field on breaking routes. And that's really where you want Jeudy to be. I think that's why they've coveted him. And if you listen to Deshaun Watson, they've coveted him with the ideal of Deshaun Watson being the quarterback. Not that they wanted Jeudy when Baker Mayfield was here. They coveted him when they got Deshaun Watson. Deshaun talked about that was part of the recruitment pitch with him. So
I'm interested to see what type of routes they combine for, because they run some of the same type routes. Mm-hmm. They're very good at some of the same things. So I'm interested in seeing how they will incorporate those, especially with David Njoku, who I feel like Njoku is trending upwards. Like, we talked about great seasons and what seasons look like. I'm interested in seeing, what your perspective for Njoku is, but that's for another day.
Oh, I think early in the season they're going to spam him with tight end screens because of this new hip drop rule.
They go spam, and trust me, it seems like they spam him anyway with the tight end screens.
No, like we gonna
that says a
Ken
lot
Dorsey,
to say they're gonna spam him now.
Ken Dorsey gonna use this dude on end arounds. Like I'm pretty sure of it. Like they're gonna see a lot of screens to David Njoku. Hey, Cav can cook up a tight end screen. So
listen, his tight end. If you're a tight end, you want to come. They give you quarterback sneaks. They give you end arounds. They'll let you throw the rock, like whatever. You a tight end. Come. Hey, listen. You know what he would do with Bowers?
I wouldn't be surprised if David got the ball way more in the first 6 weeks than he did like the rest of the season, because I think they're really going to want to see like, hey, how does this hip drop rule really affect smaller guys if they got to tackle somebody like David and Joe, right? Like, is that going to be an actual problem for them, or is this something that's kind of like made out of nothing? And honestly, you just want to get David the ball because, you know, you might not have Nick Chubb early, so you want to have him not a part of your rushing plan, right? I don't think David Njoku runs the ball, but a part of your, what I would call, package of low percentage, high yield plays where you know you can get 5 yards out of this without very little risk, right? That's what running the ball is. It's a low risk, high yield play because you know if you run the ball, there's a good chance with Nick Chubb that you get 5 yards and you get to, you know how important it is for a team, you know, when you were playing against them to get that 5 yards on first down, because for you as a defender, it changes everything about how there's a lot more thinking that goes on about what do I do? What's appropriate for me to do? Can I do this? You know what? Or it gets you to make a bad decision. Like, they've been moving us. They got 5 yards. I'm slaying. I'm slaying.
Yeah. Listen, I'm hitting the
and then move. They run a counter to your side, and then you're looking there with the
or you like, listen, forget it. If they run this ball, like, listen, I'm guessing play action right here. I'm straight up field.
Mm-hmm. And then you get upfield, and then you start getting upfield, and you like, ooh, I'm getting there easy, dog. And then you realize why.
You didn't feel that? You didn't feel that? You ain't got in the backfield all game. Now you feel like you Superman. You that good?
So
no.
I've always had this question. When that happens to you as a defense tackle, how far upfield, what's the upfield to how hard I got to run to make sure coach ain't mad at me ratio? Like, how hard do you miss upfield that you have to be like, oh, I got to sprint back. I got to sprint and really act like, because you see guys, like I saw this with Jordan Elliott one time where Jordan cut all the way to the other hash. And Jordan to the immediately, like Nixon, you know, you see Jordan 20 yards downfield still trying to make the tackle. And I'm like, that is a man who knows he messed up.
So what we used to have is, you know, on any draw, you don't see too many draws anymore. That just dates myself. But things like screen, wide receiver screen, you know, tight end screen, things like that, you know, they teach you to retrace your steps. So when you rushing and you get 2-3 steps and you feel like, oh, goodness, they didn't swim me by, like this play is coming behind me. 1-2 steps, and then you retrace your steps directly back upfield, because nine times out of 10, they're teaching those guys to hold them up because the backside is supposed to make that play. You guys, you're supposed to make the play. You're not blocked. So they used to give us a minus, right? If you had one more step over to that 2-step threshold where no one's blocking you and you was fooled, you get a minus on that play. So what you got to do is, if you 1, 2, 3 and you there so quick and you the first one and the quarterback is dropping, you got to sell out. You got to be the one that sells out. Like, you got to literally, like, hey, coach, I could have knocked that down. I was just on the quarterback's ankles. I got a QB hit on that. You got to do it that way, because you can't be in no man's land, because you'll never 3 steps you trying to retrace. And that's when you get the loaf, when the guys is too far away and you get the big dudes just trotting behind, looking like you're doing a church dance with your shoulders. Nah, that ain't it. You're going to get a double minus. You're going to get the loaf, and you're going to get the minus for not retracing your steps.
DBs have figured it out, right? Like, DBs are the only ones like, hey, man, I know how to play off a bad play. Linebackers, they have no clue.
They be turning around, getting spun around. And it's kind of hard, too. Like, as a linebacker, because it's obvious because you're almost near the ball every time the ball is there. So when you got an MA or something like that as a backer, it just looks bad. It's just that you're right in the middle of the fray.
You want to know a linebacker messed up? If they try to punch the ball loose, the play been dead for 2 minutes. Like, they trying to get that check back.
Look,
hey dog, I know you missed your gap now. Like, I know you didn't crash when you were supposed to sink. Like,
and they gonna be like this. Like, you didn't have that. You wasn't close.
Yeah, like whenever I see that, I'm like, oh, he missed the push call. Like, so Mike said push. He should have pushed. Like,
you always know when a safety get broke off in coverage because he's the first one. It's cover 0. Mm-hmm. You knew good and well.
Hey, you had him. Nobody stitches on safeties like corners.
And they'd be like,
nobody because you look, a safety misses something, what that corner is you. Like,
you just looking at him. Right?
Look, man, hey, that's how I know Greg Newsom's a good locker room guy, because everybody was talking about how Greg Newsome got sold in that game, and I'm like, nah, Roddy Hickman was getting torn apart by CJ Stroud in that game, and poor Greg Newsome was doing his best to recover for it, and I ain't see him give 1 point to Roddy Hickman. I'm like, that's a good teammate right there, because there are corners out there that would let you know.
Well, you know why they get Greg Newsome the most, because Greg Newsome celebrates after every play. Like he celebrates on other people's plays.
Greg Newsome is like a team vibes guy because he's not doing that for himself. He wants to keep the vibes up.
Jim Schwartz tells them they have to separate or celebrate, and he does it like for everybody. He's just like, "Yo, guys, I'm just celebrating for you," and then he gets destroyed for it because people think like he's just way too happy on plays, and it's just.
His job is to keep the vibes going. And sometimes remember when Jared Allen, everybody got mad at Jared Allen for clapping about the defensive technical 3 that coach was telling him to celebrate, right? Yeah. And it's like, hey, dog, that's just his job. Like that, you got to take that up with JB.
He's just doing that, man. He's just doing it, man.
Yeah, he's doing what's necessary of him. But G, thank you for coming on, man. Always a joy having you on. I wonder what outfit you gonna come in next. You gonna come in a candy cane suit, like that?
come in wearing a Grinch outfit. By the way, man, listen, I gotta go to a dice game later on. I gotta catch you later.
Like you pulled a deck of cards out from under that Kango.
Right here.
That's not a Kango. That's a what they call it.
Man, this is that cat daddy. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? This is, man, yo, ask your dad about this one right here, man. His people, he had a couple of these in his day. You know what it is.
All right, man. Well, G, have fun at your saxophone rehearsal. Y'all have a great day.
I'm going to tell Kenny G I said, what's up, man?
Peace.